Hi, my name is Rufus Connell, and I'm here with Jeff Cotrupe, who's a principal analyst for Frost & Sullivan's Stratocast team. Today, Jeff presented about big data and its implications for the world. Jeff, the theme of Gill Silicon Valley is disrupt, transform, and collapse.
You bet.
Tell me how big data is having these impacts on the world.
I appreciate it, and I'm going to promote myself to industry director during the interview here, so that's my title, industry director. Here's what's going on with big data. A lot of what's been happening has been big data, big, clunky systems, if you will, sort of the old world of IT. And it's been basically the business users have had to go to the IT folks, or maybe in recent years to the data scientists to get the answers they need. What's going on is kind of a revolution. It's kind of business user friendly. We've got companies making that data available to users in milliseconds, and the business users can get their hands on it. We're increasingly talking about real-time analytics, so it's not making inquiries about data that take days or weeks, but having data right then when you need it to do your job. So a lot of disruption and a lot of angles there.
Jeff, we hear about big data with advertising, but what other industries are using big data?
I'll tell you, they all are, but one I want to talk about is one of our practice areas is we call it retail, mobile, and location analytics. That's a really hot area because a couple of things going on. People really weren't aware, but they are more so now, that their actions are being tracked when they're at or near a retail facility. So it's an exciting area. It's a lot of privacy aspects. How do you collect that data? How do you use that and that kind of thing? But what it really is for the folks that know how to do it and make relevant offers and speak, intelligently and considerately to the users, they're able to stay in touch with these folks and be available to them, I guess I'd say 24/7, help them with the right offers when they get near a store. If there's a customer service situation, they maybe had a lot of drop calls if you're a carrier, or if you had a bad service situation for any industry, send them an offer. Keep that customer rather than lose their business forever. So it's a really great, innovative space. There's a lot of opportunity there, and some of the leading players from our side of things, the way we look at it, are some of the smaller providers. So it's pretty exciting.
Jeff, during this morning's keynote at Gill Silicon Valley, we talked about exploding population growth and emerging markets, and we talked about economies like China and India and many of the countries in Africa. Right. Is big data a U.S. phenomenon, or is it taking place in all these markets?
Oh my goodness, great question. Yeah, it's global. Now, there is a center of power here, as you can imagine, kind of like telecom used to be, here and then maybe Europe, Latin America, and also, as you can imagine, APAC. But it really is a global phenomenon, and we see people. I don't know of a lot of players that, at least that we talk to, that are only selling in one region. They're all looking to do business in a couple of different places. And with the exploding populations, what I like about this is that big data is not just a big commercial phenomenon where, you got big bucks to get in the game and it's all about that. Governments and countries and people are starting to use this stuff in more innovative ways to solve municipal problems. Not even just, let's talk about Wi-Fi. How do I allocate Wi-Fi in a central municipal area? Well, that's one thing. But then as far as water use and traffic and population, all these kinds of things that make people's lives better, big data had better be in the middle of it. Otherwise, you're kind of making decisions based on assumptions.
Jeff, you mentioned governments and municipalities. We're all aware of the Facebooks and the Googles of the world using big data and analytics. Right. Is this something the small guy can get in on, the retailer with 4 or 5 stores?
Absolutely. There's, and I won't throw out names because there would be too many names. I would shortchange somebody. But there's some company doing some great things in terms of local retailer tie-ins, but also customer loyalty kind of things, that they use big data to very effectively figure out what's going on with the population, buying patterns and traffic patterns and things like that. And they're enabling those small shopkeepers who are maybe having trouble keeping up to compete with the big guys, and we all look the same on the face of a smartphone. And so there's a lot of exciting stuff going on there. The other thing that's going on is that everybody's been trying to survive in the age of Amazon and the giant e-tailers, and we love Amazon, Zappos, these guys have provided good service. But the little guys felt like they were getting, maybe trampled and getting lost in the game. Well, now there are companies out there that are specifically out to arm the retailers and local merchants with this kind of stuff. There's directory services, which is sort of crowdsourced, just all kinds of exciting stuff. So it really is. That's a great question. Nobody thinks of, those kinds of angles. That's a great angle, and it really is helping the small guy. Sure.
You mentioned, again, municipalities as an example, talking about, provisioning maybe utilities.
Yeah.
We obviously think about the over-the-top providers who are using analytics to sell advertising, so it's a top-line revenue piece for them.
Right.
Is analytics and big data for a carrier, is that a top-line revenue generator, or is it a cost-savings tool?
Like the communications provider? Right now, it's two things. Years past, we actually, in the pages of Stratocast reports, were chiding the carriers, the CSPs, for only using it as a revenue generation and a customer retention, churn reduction kind of a tool. That's okay. Those are good usage. But now they're really starting to use it in operations, operationalizing, I think is what I was trying to say. Too many syllables going through my brain at that moment. So, they're using it in a lot of areas that help them to be more effective, more efficient, and it's not just about, by the way, though, let me circle back to the advertising angle. Operators have been kind of like, they have the mobile users that everybody wants to get to, but they didn't have any of the intelligence, so they were like the pipe through which brands and agencies and all these other guys were reaching those users. Now operators are getting smart and are arming themselves, and they now can turn over and say, okay, you want to reach this specific target market that bought this item in the last 14 days, we got them for you now. Whereas even 4 or 5 years ago, they didn't have it at all. So it's good operationally and also for the marketing side for them.
So, Jeff, we're here at Gill Silicon Valley. It's Frost & Sullivan's flagship event. We're seeing presentations from all 10 of the verticals that Frost covers. Obviously, we've been talking about big data, which is your bread and butter. What have you seen that interests you that's outside of our normal Stratocast coverage areas?
I'm not sure if they're outside our coverage areas, but in my session alone, I saw great use of, and I don't want to talk, we're trying to get away from the big data, but some interesting uses of how in healthcare field, for example, they're helping a lot of folks who really aren't all that comfortable with dealing with data. They know the medical profession, they have their expertise, helping them to get value from it there. Another case, there's a small vendor that is helping to equip people in things like retail and manufacturing, and they're able to help people in those areas to, get value that they didn't even know was there. And here's the cool thing. In a lot of cases, they're like unlocking the value of data. They don't have to, we track 39 data sources. A lot of them are external, but a lot of them are internal too. And people are just amazed now to be able to get their hands on it. The data was always there somewhere, but now they can do something with it that's meaningful. And that's really cool. And I just think that's going across verticals now.
All right. You got any? What else? Hi, my name is Rufus Connell, and I'm here with David Brussell, who's the Vice President of Frost & Sullivan's Global... Hi, I'm Rufus Connell, and I'm here at Gill Silicon Valley with David Brussell, who's the Global Vice President and Editorial Director of the Manufacturing Leadership Council. Tomorrow is a big day for us. We're going to be releasing our annual leadership survey. And David, I'd like to take a chance to let you maybe give us a sneak peek about what's going to be in that survey.
Sure thing, Rufus. This will be our 4th Next Generation Leadership study that we've done for the Council. And one of the more interesting findings this year is that collaboration is happening in a lot of companies almost organically from the bottom up. But organizational structures in these companies haven't caught up. So there's a lag or a gap between what companies are actually doing collaboratively and how they're structured and managed. And this tension, this friction, is creating leadership issues within a lot of companies.
David, are you seeing that take place in the traditional large-scale manufacturers, or is that a case of the sort of brand new, smaller, more agile manufacturing companies?
It's kind of across the board, and it's much more aggravated in the larger companies that have additional layers. So the more complex the organizational structure, the more difficult it is to change it. But nevertheless, employees are still acting collaboratively, almost in defiance of the structure. The structures haven't caught up, and it's become a big leadership issue for a lot of companies.
So it sounds like there's a lot of companies that are both trying to move quickly and use modern tools, and they're struggling it from an organizational perspective. Are you seeing companies that have solved this problem?
Some have, yeah, and the ones that have tend to use technology very effectively. Technology that can be used effectively, like enterprise social networking tools, for example, can help facilitate the organizational change. But leadership has to buy in culturally to the change, because it also changes the way the company is managed and how decisions are made. So what we're seeing in addition is kind of the deterioration of command and control philosophies to run the enterprise, to run the organization. It's shifting slowly, but it's shifting to more collaborative approaches.
So command and control is slowly going away, but are you seeing the companies that are successful deploying the technology from the top down, or are we seeing these as grassroots initiatives where the technology is a sort of BYOD, BYOT thing?
There's a lot of it coming from the ground up, and it's almost a revolution in a lot of companies, because companies are trying to, after the fact, put in policies, put in procedures for a lot of things that people are just doing because they can do it. And that's part of the whole catch-up phase that a lot of companies are in.
Now, we're talking about manufacturing companies here. Are we seeing this in the sort of design side of things, or are we seeing this at the operations side or the factory floor? Where are we seeing these collaborative tools being used?
We're seeing it in many spots. We're seeing it in operations, production, which we would call manufacturing in general. We're seeing it in supply chain. We are certainly seeing it in the IT departments of a lot of manufacturing companies. It's a little slower on the factory floor, but as more and more devices and equipment gets IP enabled on the factory floor, it's going to start to catch up over time.
So what other things would you like to talk about?
Weather out here in San Jose.
David, we're here at Gill Silicon Valley today, and we've got a lot of our Frost & Sullivan and Manufacturing Leadership Council members here today. I understand we've got some interesting things coming up that our council members will be doing.
Yeah, one of the most interesting things coming up is a continuation of a series we put into place for this year, which we call Special Council Plant Tours and Discussion Roundtables. We had one in August at American Axle in Kalamazoo, Michigan that was wonderful. We had almost 40 council members and other invited guests at this event. We're having another one at Campbell Soup's Pepperidge Farm Division in Denver, PA on October 16th, where we're going to tour where they make Chessman cookies, goldfish, Pepperidge Farm breads, and other bakery products. It should be a fascinating tour. And the subject of the roundtable is going to be next generation leadership, how to create a climate of engagement for employees. This is a really big issue in manufacturing, because more and more manufacturing companies are trying to attract new millennials into their companies. It's a big issue. And a lot of them are not quite up to the task of attracting and retaining people who want to work differently, collaboratively again. So this subject of the roundtable we're going to have at Campbell Soup is very timely, very urgent for a lot of manufacturing companies. And so I'm encouraging companies in the community to check this out, sign up for it, and come and join the discussion.
So the first plant tour you mentioned was with an automotive manufacturer.
Right.
The second one with a food manufacturer. Are we seeing our council members be able to share best practices across the breadth of verticals?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we've got two others coming up as well. Campbell's you would kind of call almost a hybrid discrete process type of manufacturer. American Axle is clearly a discrete one. We're going to have another plant tour at Lexmark on December 3rd in Colorado, in Boulder, Colorado. And they make printers, of course, so that's another discrete manufacturing example. And then on February 3rd, we're going to have a plant tour at Lockheed Martin, and we're going to see how the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter is built. So that's going to be a particularly exciting plant tour for council members to attend.